All right, ready to dive into something pretty cool.
I'm all ears. What do we got?
Mushrooms.
It's okay. More than just a pizza topping, I hope.
Way more, yeah. We're going to take a deep dive into all the benefits of mushrooms, different kinds, how they can be good for you, even some recipe ideas.
I'm intrigued already. So where are we starting? Some kind of ultimate mushroom guide.
Exactly, an ultimate guide to mushroom benefits. I'm really curious about all the hype around them being these nutritional powerhouses. Are they really?
Oh, absolutely. Big time. Low in calories, but packed with good stuff like B vitamins, selenium, even copper and potassium.
Wow, that's a lot more than I expected. But what about those claims you hear about certain mushrooms boosting your immune system? Any truth to that?
Definitely some truth there.
Yeah.
Like shiitake, maitake, and reishi mushrooms. They've got these compounds, beta-glucans, that basically train your immune cells to be better fighters.
So like a built-in defense system from a mushroom.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, this guide also talks about antioxidants. I know those are good, but how do they work with mushrooms?
Think of antioxidants as your cell's bodyguards. Mushrooms have tons of them, especially ergothioneine and glutathione, and those guys fight against oxidative stress, which is what leads to, aging and all those chronic diseases.
So mushrooms could actually slow down aging.
Potentially, yeah. It's pretty remarkable.
Wow, pretty convincing argument to eat more mushrooms right there. But there's even more to it than just antioxidants, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Mushrooms are great for your gut too. High in fiber, helps with digestion, and they even have prebiotics that feed the good bacteria in your gut.
Makes sense. Everyone's always talking about how important gut health is. What about those claims that mushrooms can help your mental well-being? The guide mentions adaptogens.
This is where it gets really interesting. Some mushrooms, like lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps, are what we call adaptogens. These are natural substances that help your body handle stress better, keep things balanced. Think of them like internal stress relievers.
They help your body adapt to everyday life.
Exactly. And they've been shown to help regulate stress hormones,
Hmm.
improve mental clarity, even boost energy. There was even a study published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology back in 2019 showed lion's mane extract really helped improve cognitive function in adults with mild cognitive impairment.
Incredible. So these adaptogenic mushrooms could be a real game changer for people struggling with stress or those kinds of cognitive issues.
Definitely potential there.
Before we get too carried away, though, what about the different types of mushrooms out there? This guide goes into a lot of detail about each one. What are some highlights?
Well, let's start simple. The button mushroom. Your classic white mushroom, you see it everywhere.
Seems basic, but it's got to be in the guide for a reason.
Totally. They're full of potassium, selenium, and those B vitamins we were talking about earlier.
Mm.
Good for your heart, your immune system, keeping your energy up.
So even the common ones pack a punch. What about cremini mushrooms? I love that earthy flavor, especially in pasta dishes.
Creminis, or baby bellas as they're sometimes called, definitely have a more intense flavor. Plus, they have even more antioxidants than button mushrooms. Remember, those help protect your cells from damage.
Okay, and then there's the portobello mushroom, the king of mushrooms, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they are pretty impressive.
I mean, that meaty texture, you can practically use them as a meat substitute.
Exactly. High in fiber and protein, too, which makes them great for, managing weight and blood sugar.
Okay, let's get into some of the more unique varieties. I've heard so much about shiitake mushrooms being amazing for your immune system. What's so special about them?
Shiitakes are really interesting. They have this smoky, woodsy flavor. But what makes them special are those potent beta-glucans. Remember? The ones we talked about earlier. Supercharge your immune system.
Oh, right, I'd forgotten. So shiitakes, good for the immune system. Anything else?
And they can help lower cholesterol, too, which is great for heart health.
Wow, that's impressive. And what about oyster mushrooms? I've always thought they're just so delicate and pretty.
Oyster mushrooms are definitely beautiful. They've got that delicate, fan-like shape and a really versatile, mild, almost sweet flavor. But here's what's really cool. They may be able to support brain health and reduce inflammation.
Brain health from our mushroom. Okay, I'm listening.
That's all thanks to their unique combination of antioxidants. It's pretty amazing, right?
That is pretty cool. All right, now on to those adaptogens, lion's mane and reishi. I'm really curious about their specific benefits, especially after that study you mentioned on lion's mane and cognitive function.
Well, lion's mane is definitely having a moment right now, and for good reason. People are realizing how much potential it has to help with cognitive function, especially things like memory and focus.
So it can make you think more clearly.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, it's a powerful adaptogen too, which means it helps your body deal with stress and stay balanced. And here's a fun fact. It also has a mild flavor that's kind of like seafood.
Wait, a mushroom that tastes like seafood? What?
Yeah. People actually use it as a substitute for crab or lobster in vegan dishes.
Wow, that's wild. What about reishi? I feel like I hear about that one a lot in, like, traditional medicine.
You're right, reishi has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries. It's known for its adaptogenic properties, its ability to boost the immune system, and its calming, stress-reducing effects.
It sounds like a miracle mushroom.
It's pretty amazing, yeah. It does have a bitter, earthy flavor, though, so it's typically consumed as a tea or a supplement.
Makes sense. It's incredible how each type of mushroom brings something unique to the table, both for flavor and for health benefits. It's like they have their own personalities.
It really speaks to the incredible diversity of these fungi, right? And what's even more exciting is that we're still learning so much about them. There's so much more research to be done.
It's like we're uncovering the secrets of an ancient food group, and the potential benefits just keep growing. Now, I know this guide we're looking at also features some delicious recipes using all these amazing mushrooms. What kind of culinary adventures are we talking about here?
Well, we could start simple. One of the recipes is for sautéed crimini mushrooms with garlic and a touch of soy sauce. Perfect as a side dish with like pretty much anything.
Okay, that sounds easy enough even for someone who's not a great cook. What else?
If you're looking for something more substantial, there's a recipe for grilled portobello mushroom burgers. Imagine those big portobello caps brushed with balsamic vinegar, grilled to perfection, and then topped with all your favorite burger fixings.
My mouth is watering already, and it's a much healthier way to enjoy a burger.
Exactly. There's also a recipe for a classic Japanese dish, shiitake mushroom miso soup. Have you ever had miso soup?
Oh, I love miso soup. That sounds perfect for a cold night.
It is. It's so warm and comforting, and it's got that really rich, savory umami flavor.
What about those delicate oyster mushrooms? Any recipes using those?
Oh, absolutely. There's a recipe for a really quick and easy oyster mushroom stir fry. It's a perfect weeknight meal.
Stir fries are always a winner. And what about lion's mane? Are there any recipes that really showcase that unique seafood-like flavor?
You bet. There's a recipe for lion's mane crab cakes. They're made with shredded lion's mane mushrooms, breadcrumbs, and seasonings, and they're supposed to taste incredibly similar to traditional crab cakes.
So no crabs were harmed in the making of these crab cakes. That's amazing. It sounds like the possibilities are really endless when it comes to cooking with mushrooms.
They're so versatile, you can do so much with them.
This is also fascinating. It really seems like mushrooms are more than just an ingredient. They're almost like this key to better health and well-being.
Yeah, it's true. And, we're really just beginning to understand their potential. Who knows what else we'll discover about these incredible fungi?
It's true, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn about the power of mushrooms.
Exactly. And speaking of unlocking that power, why don't we move on to some cutting-edge research on how mushrooms are being used to address some of today's biggest health challenges?
So we just finished talking about all these amazing recipes using all sorts of mushrooms. Now I want to shift gears a bit and delve into the world of mushroom research. You mentioned that they're being studied for their potential to actually help with some major health challenges.
Oh yeah, there's some fascinating stuff happening. One area that's getting a lot of attention is using mushrooms in cancer treatment. Researchers are really interested in compounds like polysaccharides and beta-glucans. Remember those? We talked about them earlier.
Right, for boosting your immune system. So are they saying mushrooms could help your body fight cancer?
Well, it's early days, more research is needed, but the initial findings, they look really promising. Some studies show that extracts from certain mushrooms, they can actually make chemotherapy more effective while also lessening those nasty side effects.
Wow, that would be incredible if it turns out to be true, a real game changer. Are there any other areas where this research is showing potential?
Definitely. Another exciting area is the research on mushrooms and cognitive health. We talked about adaptogenic mushrooms before, like lion's mane. Well, there's growing evidence that they could help protect the brain as we age.
So, potentially a natural way to keep our brains sharp even as we get older.
Exactly. And it might even help improve memory and focus. There was a study published in the International Journal of Medicinal Mushrooms back in 2011 found that lion's mane extract really improved cognitive function in older adults with mild cognitive impairment.
Okay, that's impressive. It really seems like mushrooms are popping up everywhere in health research these days.
They are. And it's not just in the medical field either. Mushrooms are also being explored for their potential to help with environmental sustainability.
Now, that's something I haven't heard much about, mushrooms and sustainability.
It's pretty cool. For one thing, mushrooms are amazing decomposers. They can break down all kinds of organic waste, like stuff from agriculture, even some plastics, and turn that waste into compost.
So they're like nature's recycling system.
Exactly,
Right.
helping clean up the environment. And it gets even more interesting. Some types of mushrooms can actually absorb toxins from soil, basically cleaning up pollution.
Wow, that's incredible. It seems like mushrooms are this incredible gift from nature. Maybe they hold the solutions to some of our biggest challenges.
Right. They're incredibly versatile, able to thrive in all sorts of environments, and the more we study them, the more potential we find.
Makes you wonder what other secrets they're hiding. What do you think the future holds for mushroom research?
I think we're going to see a lot more focus on understanding the compounds in mushrooms, how they work in the human body. We've really only just scratched the surface of what they can do medicinally.
So, a deeper dive into the science behind their healing power.
Exactly. I also think we'll see research into using mushrooms in personalized medicine, tailoring treatments to individual needs, based on someone's genes.
That sounds futuristic, but it makes sense. If everyone's different, why not personalize their treatment?
Right. And imagine the possibilities if we could use mushrooms to create new materials, sustainable materials.
Like using them to make packaging? Or
Yeah.
even building materials?
Exactly. There are companies already doing that. They're using mycelium, the network of cells that makes up the mushroom, to create biodegradable alternatives to plastic.
That's mind-blowing. So not only can they potentially heal our bodies, clean up the environment, but they could revolutionize how we make things.
It's an exciting time to be studying mushrooms. Their potential seems limitless. And I think this research really highlights how important it is to protect biodiversity.
You're right. The more species we protect, the more we can learn from them. Who knows what other amazing things are waiting to be discovered out there?
Exactly. And, it's not just about the scientific breakthroughs. There's a deeper message here about how we're all connected, all living things.
I agree. Mushrooms remind us that we're part of this giant ecosystem. Our health and well-being depend on the health of the planet.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time to explore another side of mushrooms, their cultural significance. They've played such an important role in human societies throughout history, in medicine, in spiritual practices.
Definitely ready for another deep dive. Let's uncover some of the stories and cultural connections these fungi hold.
Let's take a journey back in time and explore how mushrooms have shaped human civilizations all around the globe. Did you know that mushrooms have been used in traditional medicine for thousands of years?
I've heard bits and pieces, but I'd love to learn more about their history and cultural significance.
Well, in ancient China, for example, reishi mushrooms, they were seen as the mushroom of immortality, used to help people live longer, be more vital.
Makes sense with what we know now about their adaptogenic and immune-boosting properties.
Exactly. And in traditional Ayurvedic medicine in India, they used mushrooms like chaga and cordyceps to treat all sorts of things. Respiratory problems, fatigue, all kinds of ailments.
It's amazing how different cultures all around the world have recognized the healing power of mushrooms for so long.
It really shows how deep our connection is to nature. And it goes beyond just medicine. Mushrooms have also been important in spiritual practices, in myths and legends all around the world.
Now, that's something I'm really interested in. What kind of spiritual significance do they have?
Well, some indigenous cultures see mushrooms as sacred, like a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. They're often connected to ideas of transformation, growth, the cycle of life and death.
That's beautiful. It's like they embody the mysteries of nature.
Exactly. And their life cycle, they seem to appear out of nowhere, which has led to all kinds of folklore and mythology. Some cultures associate them with fairies and other mystical creatures.
I can see why their sudden appearance, those strange shapes, it definitely sparks the imagination.
For sure. And in some cultures, certain types of mushrooms, especially those with psychedelic properties, have been used in religious ceremonies and rituals for centuries.
That's a whole other aspect of mushrooms that I find fascinating. What can you tell us about the role of psychedelic mushrooms in human history?
It's a complex topic, sometimes controversial, but there's no doubt that psychedelic mushrooms have played a part in shaping human consciousness and spirituality in many cultures. For example, in ancient Mesoamerica, shamans and priests used mushrooms like psilocybin mushrooms to induce altered states of consciousness to connect with the divine.
So mushrooms as a tool for spiritual exploration and connection.
Exactly. And while there are a lot of myths and taboos surrounding the use of psychedelic mushrooms, there is a growing movement to re-examine their potential as therapy, but of course in a very controlled setting.
I've heard about that. Researchers are exploring the use of psilocybin to treat things like depression and anxiety, even addiction.
It's an area with a lot of potential. Just one more example of how our understanding of mushrooms continues to evolve, from ancient remedies to modern medicine, from spiritual symbols to potentially sustainable materials. Mushrooms have really woven themselves into human existence.
It's incredible to think about how much history and culture are tied to these seemingly simple organisms. They're a true testament to the power of nature and our connection to it.
I agree. And as we keep learning about mushrooms, I think we'll uncover even more fascinating stories and connections.
I can't wait to see what the future holds for them. They've definitely captured our imaginations today. From ancient remedies to modern innovations, from delicious food to spiritual symbols, mushrooms have become part of the human experience.
And as we continue to explore their potential, they'll keep surprising and inspiring us.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to move on to something we touched on earlier, the potential risks of foraging for wild mushrooms.
Absolutely, it's really important to be cautious and respectful when it comes to foraging.
So we were just talking about how important biodiversity is and protecting all those amazing mushroom varieties out there, but that brings us to something else we should talk about, foraging for wild mushrooms. It seems like there are some serious risks if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Exploring and foraging for mushrooms in the wild, it can be really fun and rewarding, but you've got to be careful, have respect for what you're doing.
I've heard some pretty scary stories about people getting sick, even dying, because they ate the wrong kind of mushroom.
It's a real danger, for sure.
Mhm.
Some mushrooms, they have toxins that can make you really sick, could even be fatal.
So if you're interested in foraging, what's the best way to stay safe?
The golden rule:
Hmm.
never eat a wild mushroom unless you are 100% certain you know what it is. Absolutely sure, no guessing. It's always best to go with an experienced guide or join a mycological society, learn from the experts.
So leave it to the pros unless you're totally confident you can identify them correctly.
Exactly. There are lots of resources out there, field guides, online forums, but nothing beats actually learning from someone who knows their stuff.
That makes sense. Any other guidelines for responsible foraging?
Definitely. Always get permission before you go foraging on private property. And be mindful of the environment. Don't take too much, and try not to disturb the ecosystem.
Respecting nature, making sure those resources are there for others to enjoy.
Exactly. And if you do go foraging, it's a good idea to use a basket or a mesh bag. That way the spores can spread as you walk, helps the mushrooms to grow, keeps the forest healthy.
Good tips. Sounds like responsible foraging takes knowledge, respect, and an appreciation for nature.
Absolutely. Speaking of appreciation, I think we should take a minute to just appreciate how beautiful mushrooms are. We've been talking so much about their health benefits and scientific stuff, we almost forgot how amazing they look.
That's true. Oyster mushrooms with those intricate gills, coral fungi with those bright colors, the shapes, the textures, the patterns. It's like nature's art show hidden away in the forests and fields.
It really is. And each one has its own story to tell. It's all part of this incredible web of life.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We've covered so much, the nutrition, the culture, the potential for the future.
I know, it's incredible how much we've learned, and yet it feels like we've only just begun to understand these amazing fungi.
Mushrooms have definitely captured our imaginations today. From ancient remedies to modern science, from delicious food to spiritual symbols, they're such a fascinating part of the human experience.
And as we continue to explore them, who knows what other surprises and inspiration they hold for us.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of mushrooms.
To all our listeners out there, I encourage you to explore the wonder of mushrooms. Try their unique flavors, learn their stories, appreciate their beauty. You might be amazed by what you find.
And who knows, maybe you'll even be inspired to try growing your own mushrooms. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.